Well, hello there. Good evening. Hello, hello. It is now Thursday, 7:30 p.m. Hong Kong time. I hope that you all had a wonderful week and a wonderful day, whether you're tuning in live right now or you are joining the replay. Hello and welcome. Thank you for sharing a little bit of your time with me today. I'm excited because today I'm going to be doing my first live Q&A where I don't really know the questions that are going to be coming up today, but I do have a few that you all have sent me through email and through direct message. I actually received quite a lot of questions, but some of them were doubled up. So I picked a few that for today. And if there are any questions that come up while we're chatting and having this conversation, then feel free to go ahead and type in the chat box here where I can see you. And if you have questions, just go ahead and say hello. If you are here, I see that there are a few of you watching right now. Say hello so that I can say hello back. And you all know that this is well and truly live. It really is. All right. So I hope that you all had a wonderful week. And as usual, in case you have never met me before or you don't know who I am, and the reason I keep looking here is because I have multiple screens, in case you're wondering. So I have a screen going on here, and then I have a screen going on here as well. So that is why if you see me looking back and forth, that's why. All right. So my name is Crystal. I am a singer and vocal coach at CSMA Studio and co-founder of the online Vocal Academy. And hey there, Abigail, and hey, Steve. Steve. Hello, Steve. Steve is my husband, in case anyone was wondering. And I'm a co-founder of the Online Vocal Academy, and I am here to share, just have a casual chat about singing. And this is an opportunity for you to ask any question you might like about singing or about vocal technique or anything. I will do my best to answer your question as the best as I can. If I don't know the answer, I will certainly point you in the right direction. But just to kick us off, I do have something prepared for all of you today, just to get the party started here. Hey, Magnum, nice to see you there. Thank you for joining us. And again, if you have any questions, go ahead and pop that in the chat box. I might not get to it right away, but I will go ahead and open that chat box up at the end. But I do have something pretty cool and important to share with you. If you love to sing and you want to get better at it, whether you feel that you're a total beginner or you kind of had lessons before, but never really did it consistently, but you're curious about where it could take you, or you're just thinking about singing for the first time, or maybe you aren't a singer at all. Maybe you never really thought about singing, but you use your voice a lot. Now, how many of you know that actually the vocal technique that you learn through singing 100% can be applied to speaking as well? I have many students who learn vocal technique for the purpose of both singing and for improving their speaking skills. And in the day and age of Zoom, I mean, come on, right? We need our speaking skills now more than ever, I think, especially with the new platform that's now come out, Clubhouse. Are you all on that Clubhouse app? I am. So if you are on there, be sure to search me up and follow me. We can follow each other. I'm just getting used to Clubhouse as well. It's a great platform. Lots of great people on there, great for networking, and it's all voice-based. And I'm not sure if any of you know, but Clubhouse, there's lots of singing opportunities in there too. So when you join Clubhouse, unfortunately, it's only for Apple users right now. It's only for if you have an iPhone, but there are tons of rooms and communities within Clubhouse that actually celebrate singing. There's open mics, there's some karaoke and different genres of music as well. So it's been kind of fun to jump around and see what people are talking about and join in the conversation, but it is voice-based, which I love, of course. But it's interesting for me when I'm listening in on some conversations and I'm listening to the way people use their voices. And I wonder if you've ever done that intentionally when you've been just listening to conversation, you don't see them. So you don't see their faces at all. You only hear their voice, kind of like a podcast or a radio, but there's multiple people talking because you're almost like in a room full of different people having this conversation with each other. And you have nothing to go by. You don't even really have much of a profile. You have a little picture, but that's it. But the only way to engage with a person or to really get a sense of who they are is through their voices. So it's been really interesting for me just to sit in the Clubhouse room and listen and get a sense of the people's different personalities and kind of imagine what they are like just by listening to their voices. All right, so on for the presentation. What I wanted to share with you today is actually based on a couple conversations that I've been having with my Inner Circle monthly membership members and also some of my private students as well. And I just think it's really relevant no matter what stage you are at. So I wanted to share something with you today. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I hope you can all see that. So the question that I want to start us all off with today's live Q&A is answering the question, is it true that practice makes perfect? I mean, is it true that practice makes perfect? Well, let's see. What is the answer to that question? Anybody have any thoughts? Let me see if I can do this. All right. So in this video here, we're going to cover, is it true that practice makes perfect? And then after this little mini presentation, I'm going to open it up. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask. But otherwise, I'm going to answer the questions that I have received over email and on Instagram direct message as well. All right. The first question here, is it true that practice makes perfect? We all know, we've heard that before, right? You got to practice. It's all about practicing. Practice makes perfect. The more you practice, the better you get at whatever skill that you are wanting to improve in. But is it really true? Is that all there is to it? As long as you repeat something over and over and over again, are you bound to get better at it? Well, the answer is kind of both. It's yes in theory, but it's also no. And I kind of want to go through a couple of things that that I wanted to share with you specifically with singing. Yes, Magnum says nothing is perfect. Yes, very true. You knew the answer before I even jumped in here. All right, so overarching thing that I wanted to share is that if you are practicing without a strategy, then the answer is likely no. As in, practice will not necessarily get you to where you want to go if you are practicing without any kind of strategy. And what does that mean exactly? Well, it means if you are practicing haphazardly. So if you're practicing without really knowing what you're doing and you're just repeating this action over and over again, it's very possible that you're practicing the wrong thing. And this is so important. And I want to share with you 3 reasons why practicing haphazardly, so without any kind of strategy and you're just blindly doing singing a song over and over again, why practicing haphazardly can actually do more harm than good. I'm going to share with you 3 really important reasons why. It could reinforce bad habits. All of us, if you're a beginner, if you're an experienced singer, or you're intermediate, wherever you are in your journey, we all have bad habits. We all have habits. And I have a very specific name for them. I call these bad habits actually blocking habits. And it's kind of similar to limiting beliefs. Have you ever heard of that before? Limiting beliefs? I feel like blocking habits are very, very similar. So how I define blocking habits specifically with singing, it's those things that get in the way of our voice's natural ability to resonate out and for us to sing freely and confidently. So these are just blocking habits. They're things, the physical things that literally get in our way and block our voices. And they, most of the time, come from some kind of belief, some kind of limiting belief. So they are very much related. But if you don't know what they are, if you don't know what habits you have that are actually blocking you, then it's hard for you to not do them. So can you imagine this? You're practicing over and over again, but you're actually doing you have some habits that you aren't aware of, or you don't know how to change. So what's going to happen is you're going to reinforce those bad habits. It's the same thing with limiting beliefs if we think about them, right? If we tend to think more negatively, or we tend to think in a kind of closed-mindedness, and we don't change that, then we're not going to spontaneously come out of it, right? We have to actually intentionally change some of these habits. So if we don't know what we're doing, it could actually do more harm than good, because we can be reinforcing some bad habits. We could be spinning our wheels. What does that mean exactly? Well, spinning our wheels, essentially, that we could be practicing over and over again. I mean, has that ever happened to you before? No, it has. It's definitely happened to me. When you're practicing a song over and over again, you're just like, I'm not getting any better. Why am I not getting any better? Nothing is improved. I've practiced though, right? I've put in the work. I've put in the practice. I've sung the song like 50 times. But if you're singing the song the same way over and over again, you are going to be spinning your wheels, very likely anyway, because you are doing the same things over and over again. You're not making any changes. So that's another reason why practicing haphazardly without a strategy in place can do more harm than good. And ultimately, at the end of the day, you're not going to see the progress that you want to see if you are doing that. Finally, very importantly, we could easily get discouraged. And that is the big thing when it comes to singing, because I often say singing is 80% mindset. As I think with all skills, in fact, there is I believe it's a Tony Robbins quote where he said, learning anything, I'm sure I'm butchering the quote right now, but learning anything is 80% skill. Is that what it was? I'm going to pull up that quote and share that with you another time, but it's 80% mindset and 20% skill. Singing, I totally believe it's the same thing. 80% of it is our mindset. If we are not confident, we don't believe in ourselves, we don't think we sound good, we believe that we can't hit certain notes, or we can't sustain, or people won't like us, or worried about this, worried about that, oh, but that note sounds bad. All of these things can lead to us feeling very, very discouraged, which is not going to help us at all if we want to enjoy singing. We want to enjoy that. If we are not in that mindset of fully immersing ourselves in enjoying music and enjoying that, we can't really tell our story. We can't really express ourselves or expect others to be moved and captivated by our story if we are so in our heads thinking, oh, this scary note is coming, or I feel like I don't sound good. Oh, that note was bad. If we are there, and we're constantly in our minds, then it's very hard for us to be in that moment to sing in a way that will captivate your listeners. So when we are practicing and we feel like, all we're doing is reinforcing bad habits and we're spinning our wheels, we're not getting results, we're going to get discouraged. That's a biggest factor for why it's important to have a strategy when you are practicing. All right. So what does this all mean? Well, it all means practicing gets you to where you want to go. Yes, practicing does get you to where you want to go, only if you are strategic about it. So only if you have a strategy in place, only if you have a plan for how you want to get the most out of your practice sessions. All right. This leads to the next question, right? How can I be strategic when I practice? How can I be strategic? Okay, all this is well and good in theory, but okay, let's have some action plans here. Well, I'm going to give you 5 tips that will help you maximize your results each time you practice. Okay, so 5 tips coming up for you here. Tip number 1 is you got to be doing vocal exercises, or it's also called the vocalizes. And this is really important. We cannot learn to sing. At least I haven't yet met anybody who can completely get rid of any bad habits that they have and completely, get to a whole other level in their singing skills, in their vocal skills by just singing songs alone. Why? Because when we're singing songs, there's a lot of things that are going on, right? There's the lyrics, there's the rhythm, there's the melody. And then also, when we are singing certain songs that we have some kind of experience with in the past, it's more likely that our habits are going to kick in. Right? Because also melodically, it jumps up and down, things like that. It's just a little bit more complicated. There's a lot more things to coordinate when we are singing songs. However, when we are doing vocal exercises, it's a completely different ballgame. We don't have any associations with vocal exercises, right? It's very unlikely when we're doing a vocal exercise, we're going to be thinking, oh, but my emotional delivery is not very good, right? They're just vocal exercises. So in that way, and also there's no rhythm. You don't have to worry about your rhythm too much, or even really about your pitching. Although you do have to worry about it a little bit, but it's less of a concern because it's easier to hit those pitches because it's strategic. It's laid out for you. It's either going up or it's going down, and you're just repeating it over and over again. You're not jumping all over the place like you do in a song. So with vocal exercises, it's a lot more straightforward. It's a lot simpler, which means that you can really focus. You can really focus on creating the sounds that you want with your voice. So it's really important that you are practicing with vocal exercises. Oops, went ahead there. I also want to mention that, vocal exercises, the whole point of vocal exercises is so that you can become aware of these blocking habits. right? You use vocal exercises to become aware of your blocking habits so that you can shift away from them and really free your voice. If you're just doing songs, then it's not that it's impossible, but you're more likely to be distracted, and you're more likely to be battling against your vocal habits, your bad habits that might be kicking in. It's just harder to manage and harder to control. So you have to be doing your vocal exercises. All right, tip number 2 for how to maximize your vocal practice time and how to be strategic when you are practicing, super, super important, is you want to work towards 1 or 2 specific outcomes when you are practicing. Why? Because if you are trying to tackle everything that you feel is wrong or bad or doesn't sound good in your voice, you end up probably not feeling so good about your voice is one thing. Been there, done that. All right. Or you end up not really achieving very much because you're trying to tackle too many different things at one time. It's hard for you to stay focused. I'd much rather my students to be focusing on 1 or 2 outcomes when they are practicing. For example, I just want to be focusing on the high notes of the chorus. That's a pretty specific thing. Or I just want to be focusing on my rhythm, or I just want to be focusing on my phrasing. These are very, very specific outcomes and it's much more strategic that way because you're more hyper focused. You'll actually see the results that you're looking to achieve rather than thinking and bouncing all over the place and thinking, oh, my timing is bad. Oh, my pitch is bad. Oh, I can't hit that note. Oh, I'm scared about this. I'm worried about that. And then you just get yourself into this cycle of spinning your wheels, essentially, right? So that's tip number 2. You definitely want to be more specific. And remember, I've asked students this before. I'll say, especially with my members, I'm training my students to be specific about what it is that they are wanting to achieve when they're practicing. And getting better is not really specific. Sometimes they'll say, I just want to get better. It's like, we all just want to get better, right? But specifically in what area? That's what's going to make the biggest difference. All right, tip number 3, you got to ask for feedback because sometimes we practice ourselves in our room, and then we start to not really know what we're listening for anymore. This is very common. We're practicing a song over and over again. You're like, okay, I feel like it's better, but I'm not really sure. That's why you got to ask for feedback. At the end of the day, we don't hear ourselves the same way that other people will hear us. We just won't hear ourselves the same way. And we are also always our own worst critics. Isn't that right? Many of you have emailed me and shared your stories with me, which I love. I love receiving. And if you are on my email list and you email me, I promise you I will email back. And it really is me emailing. Some people on my email list have asked me, are you really emailing every single person? I'm like, yes. It's important to me that if you write to me, I'm going to write you back. And you share your story with me, I'm going to celebrate you, and I'm going to, let you know that I appreciate you sharing that story with me, because music is all about connection. We sing so that we can connect with other people, and this is all part of it. So you want to ask for feedback. And one of the most common things that people share with me on the emails when they send me messages is they'll say, I'm so bad at singing. Even when students come in for lessons, they'll say that. Just warning, I am terrible at singing. It's the first thing that they do when they come in. And I understand that, because I used to say the same thing. I used to say the same thing to myself, to other people all the time. You wouldn't believe it. That's a story for another time. Okay. But I grew up singing. I started singing when I was 8 years old, but I never thought I was a good singer. And so I believed that. I told myself that all the time. That led to a lot of struggles later on in my journey. Story for another time, but I know where that comes from. So it's important that we ask feedback so that we can get a new perspective, but not just feedback from anyone. Ideally, you're asking feedback from people who are experienced, who know what that feels like to be really wanting something, to really want to get better at something, and to know that it's not easy, but also to know what it's like on the other side when you do see progress and you do see that improvement in your voice. It's important to be asking feedback from those kinds of people. They really get where you're coming from. All right, tip number 4 out of the 5, how can we make our practice sessions, get the most out of our practice sessions and be really strategic about it, is you have to accept. We all got to accept this. And I literally had a conversation with a student earlier today about this. We got to accept that you're not going to sound perfect every single time you practice, but you also have to know that perfection is not the point of vocal practices. We don't practice in our sessions to be perfect, right? When we teach our students, we don't expect them, we're not like, okay, be perfect here. You got to be perfect before you're allowed to leave or anything like that. Perfection is not the goal at all. All right. So it's important that we have to be willing to accept that and to know that. And why is this important? Why is it actually important to not think that we have to be perfect? And we got to be willing to accept that we're not going to sound the greatest when we are learning to sing. Well, I like the analogy of throwing darts. Has anybody out there, do you guys throw darts at all? I speak like I do, I don't, but I have done it and I understand the theory of throwing darts. So sometimes if you ever see me throw darts, I'll probably in the beginning, I'll just be randomly chucking things at the wall, right? And hoping that the darts don't hurt anybody, but I'll be randomly throwing it. But after you do it a bunch of times, but you're strategic about it and you're like, okay, so if I angle it this way, if I throw with this kind of momentum and this kind of energy and I move it here, you start to zone in onto the bullseye slowly, slowly. But if you throw it once and you think, oh, that was terrible, I'm just bad at this, right? Then you're not going to continue to find and fine tune and hone your skills to find that sweet spot. Right, to find that sweet spot when you're throwing darts. It's very similar to playing golf as well. You know, people talk about the sweet spot on the golf club, right? That you kind of have to make a couple bad swings before you can find that sweet spot. You can't think yourself to do it. You can't think, I better be perfect. I better be perfect. This has got to be, I got to nail this shot. You can't do that. You actually have to hit a few bad swings to know to know how to fine tune and how to find that sweet spot. Voice is the same thing. I have so many students that they'll sing and then they'll say, oh, that was bad. It was terrible. And I'm like, no, you just got to make a little couple of shifts. It's okay. You are in the right direction. So it's important to, when you go on this journey, to just be aware of that and know that it's not about being perfect. It's about it's about trying and then honing your skills. And that's why we got to be strategic when we are practicing. All right, tip number 5 here, consistency is key. I think that this is pretty self-explanatory. It's kind of like going to the gym, right? We got to go to the gym not just once or twice, not even just 3 or 4 times, and also not once a month. We do have to maintain it. And the thing is with singing is that singing is so tied to our mind, but it's also tied to our body. And so just in general, we know that if we want to train for a marathon, we want to really improve our general fitness level, our health, we got to be consistent. You know, we got to eat right. We got to sleep consistently, have enough sleep. We have to be exercising consistently. Vocal training is exactly the same way. Consistency is key. I have students that will practice like once a month or something, but they practice at home. So they come for lessons maybe once a month, or they come for lessons once every couple of weeks, but they are strategic at home. I tell them exactly what to be working on so that they can maintain on their own time as well. That's still being consistent. All right, so I hope that was helpful. Let's just recap that before I go into the live Q&A here. So in order to be strategic, you know now that practice makes perfect, or practice helps you to get to where you want to be only if you are strategic about it. And how are we going to be strategic about our practice sessions? Well, let's recap. Number 1, you got to be practicing vocal exercises, okay? Not just singing songs over and over again. Number 2, you want to work towards 1 or 2 specific outcomes. Okay, not trying to tackle everything at one time. Okay? Work towards 1 or 2 specific outcomes. Number 3, you want to ask for feedback, and not just feedback from anyone, ideally from people who have gone there, been there, done that, had that experience, and are still on that path of vocal discovery now, that can help you along and to encourage you and know what's on the other side for you. Don't go for perfection. Know that that is not the point of vocal exercises or vocal training. It's not so that you can have a perfect voice. And finally, consistency is key. Okay, so those are the couple of tips there. And you may be wondering, okay, I kind of get that in theory, but how do I really put that into practice? I get it on paper, but how do I actually do it? Well, I have good news. Next week, I am doing a 5-day workup It's only $10 US. And people have been sending me emails and messages asking me, is it really just $10? And yes, yes, it really is just $10. It's a low cost, totally no risk way of working with me for 5 days. And what I'm going to do is teach you my formula. And it's just a workshop that you can attend live or you can watch the replay as well. It's just, like I said, $10. And what you get is you get all 5 of my guided vocal exercise routines. So that helps you with your vocal exercises, right? Remember what I mentioned earlier, that if you want to be strategic and see results in your vocal practices, you got to be doing vocal exercises. Well, when you join for just $10 US, it really is just $10, not $10 per day. It's $10 for the whole thing. Okay. You get all 5 of my guided vocal exercise routines. You can download and keep forever. You have the formula, not $10. Magnum, I didn't mean to stop here, but I just saw your message pop up and you said $10 Hong Kong. Unfortunately, no, it's $10 US. Okay. $10 US. It's $10 Hong Kong. I think that people will think I'm I really am crazy. All right. $10 US. Yes, you're right. It's even low for it's totally a no-brainer offer here. You get the formula for how to sing the easy way. Okay, I'm going to actually teach you not the full formula. So if you're not familiar, I've created an easy vocal technique formula that when you join the membership, so if you want to join me in my membership, our monthly membership, you get access to the full formula. But during this workshop coming up next week, I'm going to teach you the main components of it. I'm going to teach you the main bits of the formula that will really help you hit the ground running. So you're going to get that. You're going to get 4 live group coaching sessions with me. If you can't make it to the live sessions, you can join me in the limited time replay. So for limited time, you'll get the replay so you can see what I taught and still get all the trainings from that. You have opportunities for me to give you feedback, focused feedback on your vocals. So if you want me to coach you during one of the live sessions, you can apply to do that. Every live session, I invite 2 to 3 participants where I will coach you during that session with the other participants as well. So it's a really great opportunity if you really want to see what working with me is like. That's essentially it. It's a low cost, totally risk-free way of kind of seeing my teaching style and also my teaching strategy. All right, so there it is again. You can click the link. There is no link right now, but you can go to this link here, onlinevocalacademy.com/workshop. I will also pop it in the box here too for you all if you want to check that out and join me. I hope to see you then. I'm just popping it here too so you can see it in the comments. And there we go. It's right there. All right, so you can join me now. Okay, so that is my share. I hope that you enjoyed that and you found this valuable. And now I'm going to answer some questions. Okay, so if you have questions about the workshop, if you are wondering why it's so low, I do have an answer for that. But if you are having any questions at all, now is the time to ask me. I'm an open book. I will tell you what you need to know. If I know the answer, I will tell it. I will tell you. But to kick us off, I do have some questions that I have from emails and from DMs. Like I said, I've received quite a few messages and comments and questions. However, I kind of pulled out the ones that were repeated. So there's a couple questions that were kind of repeated. So I just pulled out the ones so that you have a little bit of a variety here. Okay, so first up here is Andrew asks, high notes are always hard for me. Why is that? Okay, so the answer, this is a good question, is also a common one. A lot of students have asked me variations of this question. It really depends on what you are doing. So I mentioned earlier today about blocking habits. Blocking habits literally get in the way of your voice. And so sometimes, I would say most of the time, when students come for lessons, they'll say, oh, I have hard time with this high note. And then they'll want to work on the high note. But I don't work on the high note. What I do is I work on the stuff that you're doing before you hit the high note. Most of the time, I would say 9 times out of 10, the problems occur before the high note even comes. So what I do with students, I strategically, with vocal exercises, help them to adjust away from their bad habits before they get to the high notes, and all of a sudden, boom, they hit the high notes. So high notes actually literally have a video on that. I'll send that to you, Andrew, if you're here. I'm not sure if you're here, but I have a couple YouTube videos where I address this, and I said exactly why high notes are hard. Usually it's because of the way you're approaching them. So if you change your approach, high notes are not hard anymore. Truly, a lot of 10 times out of 10 when I work with students, they suddenly hit those high notes within one lesson. It's not because I'm a miracle worker, right? Although I'd love to be. It's simply because I show them exactly how to shift away so that by the time they get to the hard part, it's not really a problem anymore. It's kind of like a door, right? We open up the couple doors and we realize, oh, that's how I get the high note. You literally feel like that door is open. So I hope that helps. It's hard for me to give you specific guidelines because I don't hear your voice. I don't know where you're coming from or what notes specifically are hard for you. But in general, I would say high notes are hard because of the way you're approaching them. So you want to look at how you're approaching that and use some exercises to maybe help you alleviate some tension on the way that you're approaching those high notes. And then those high notes will become easier. Good question. All right. Janice asks, how can I sing with confidence? Okay. This is a big question. Okay. And I think ultimately that is probably the number one reason why people come for singing lessons. Really. They don't, when I ask them why are you here for singing lessons? Why do you want to learn? They don't say, I want to be on America's Next Top Idol, or I want to go to, 中国口声音, China's Sing China, or whatever it is. Very rarely do I have a student that will say that. It's usually because of confidence. At the end of the day, we learn anything so that we can become more confident at it. And so I would say, how can I sing with confidence? Confidence, one of the best quotes that I ever was taught about confidence, which I think is so true, is confidence is the willingness to try. And that's it. All of us, even the most confident person, every single one of us has struggled with confidence at one point in our life. That's normal human nature, part of life, right? Even people who are confident, even confident coaches, I've talked to confident coaches, they still battle with confidence because it's human nature. But confidence, the key to building confidence is to have the willingness to try. So if you are willing to try, you're willing to lean into that feeling of discomfort, you're willing to put yourself into uncomfortable situations, but you're willing to try, that's how you're going to build confidence. So I hope that helps. I know it's not necessarily specific to singing, but I do believe that when you build confidence through singing, your confidence actually improves in all areas of your life. And the same goes with other things too. You become confident in speaking, then you become confident in maybe a job interview. It does have a ripple effect. So I hope that answers your question. Okay, Tay Wong, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Tay asks, so I had to read this a couple times. When I sing 6 octaves voice, the high note, I'm looking for a way to modify it to be more beautiful. How will it be more beautiful? Using nasally or using the mask? So I'm going to rephrase your question. I think what you're asking is when you're singing high, like when you're going really high, how do you modify it to make that tone more pleasant or more beautiful? Again, it's hard to say in words because I don't know. It depends on what you're doing. Let me have a water break. So it depends on what it is that you're doing specifically. However, in general, I would say one of the quickest way to modify a tone, a person's tone, is to change your vowel. So look at your vowel. Vowel is or how you are shaping the sound. Let me give you an example. If I'm going, you, that carries a very specific tonal color, a very specific tonal vibrancy, a very specific tonal sound. But if I modify my vowel, so I modify the shaping of that, you can become you or you. It's very different from you. So that could be a quick way of modifying the sound to make it more pleasant. Now, there is a second part to this. The second part to this is that you gotta be able to listen to that. So doing it is one thing, but then developing the ear training to know how that sound how the sound that you created, how that comes across to another person, that's another thing in itself. So if you join any and a part of the membership program, so if you join the workshop, you can work with me. I can actually hear your voice and give you more specific guidelines. But if you like the workshop and you enjoy working with me, then I'm going to invite you to join me in my monthly membership program. Now, in the monthly membership program, it's a journey. It's a long-term journey where you are with other people and you're learning to sing with other people. And why am I mentioning this is because you're also training to hear other people's voices as well. And you train your ear. This kind of ear training is so valuable for singers because you're learning to hear tonal sounds on another person's voice. And guess what? When you hear that and you pick up on those tonal sounds on a person's voice and you realize and you develop that understanding of, whoa, that sound is like really resonant, really rich. You're far more likely to find the equivalent in your voice. You're going to start to be more sensitive to your vocal sound, the way that you're creating sounds, and you're going to be able to craft a sound that really optimizes your vocal instrument. So I hope that helps. So I wouldn't really think about, I know what you're asking in terms of the nasally or the mask part. I don't necessarily think that thinking along those lines is going to be helpful to you though. I think more of changing your vowels. So think about how you're shaping that particular vowel, how you're creating whatever vowel it is on that high note. And also learning to listen. Training yourself to listen or get feedback on that, or maybe record yourself. And as you're modifying the vowel, you can record yourself and listen back. And then you can train your ear in that way. I hope that helps. Carla asks, how can I improve my vibrato? Great question. And I just so happen to have a new freebie on offer. So I'm going to type that here in the chat box as well. So if you're watching now or you're watching the replay, Carla, you can check that out, or you can email. I don't think I have your email, but let me share with you a new freebie. This is completely free that you have access to if you like. And this is a vibrato training video that I actually created for my monthly members. And it really, hold on, let me see. Let me just grab it here. Grab the link. Probably should have prepared that beforehand. Here you go. Here. So if anyone is interested in checking out my vibrato training, I'm putting that together, just limited time before I do the workshop. It's a limited time freebie, so you can check that out. What this is that it's a training that I've taken from my monthly membership program. So every single month in my monthly membership program, I release a brand new training focused on specific area of the voice. So one of the months I released a training about vibrato. And so because I get this question quite a lot, so I've released this so that if you want access and you want to see kind of behind the scenes as to what the training videos are like, and this is just one of many that I have in our library, then you can check that out. So go ahead and go to onlinevocalacademy.com/vibrato and you can check out my training there. I hope that helps you. All right, Olivia, we're going to go just 2 more questions here before I wrap. I'm just going to double check that no one else is posting. Okay. Magnum says, valuable share above link to friends and social medias. Thank you so much, Magnum. That really is, I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. All right, so 2 more questions that I have here from you all is Olivia asks, when I practice, I sometimes feel a tickle in my throat. Is that bad? Okay, so this is common, and I know what you're talking about here. So I would say in general, again, it depends on, it's hard for me to say because I have to hear you. At the end of the day, you have to take everything I say with a grain of salt and judge your own, be your own, you are your own best boss when it comes to that, or your own best coach when it comes to that, because I can't hear you. So the guidelines that I'm giving you are only best guesses. However, and also based on the experiences that I had with other students. Now the tickle thing, the best answer that I can give you is that if anything feels uncomfortable when you are singing or when you are practicing, if anything feels uncomfortable, you can assume, especially if you're not working with a coach, you can assume that it's an indication or it's a sign of imbalance. So something is off balance in the way that you're creating that sound that's causing that tickle. So then you're going to want to change. And the safest thing would be to reduce your volume or really learn to activate your lower abdominals to really lean down into that sound. So you're not explosively singing from, using the wrong muscles in the throat area. I know that that's kind of, okay, well, how do I do that? It's going to take kind of a process to do that. But in general, the tickle in the throat is not necessarily a bad thing because this is all information, right? It's all awareness tools. We can do that and feel that, and we can say to ourselves, okay, that is an indication, that is a sign that there's something that I'm doing that is off balanced. That means you got to change something. All right. So I hope that answers your question. So no, it's not necessarily bad because it's telling you something, right? It's telling you, giving you valuable information that you can then use. But if you don't do anything about it and you just continue to push through, even if you're feeling uncomfortable, then yeah, I would say you got to be careful with there. Always be safe. All right. Last question here is Michael. Michael asks, what is mixed voice? Okay. I'm going to try to answer this as succinct as possible because this could be a whole training in itself. In fact, I do have a training on that. I have a training all about mixing and how to connect between the lower and the upper register in my monthly membership program. But in general, mixed voice, I like to describe it as a tonal color. So we have chest voice. Actually, I have a YouTube video that I talked about this. So, Michael, if I can find your contact information, I'll send that to you. But otherwise, you can message me again and I'll send it to you. But it's a video that I did on YouTube, on my YouTube channel, that is about mixed voice. So you can check that out. But in general, we got chest tone. I like to call it chest tone, and then head tone. And then we got something in the middle. Essentially, we always want to be mixing our tonal colors. We never want to be fully 100% in chest voice sound. And we never really want to be fully 100% in head voice sound. We want to have some kind of blend. So I like to think of it as ratios, right? So when we are in our lower part of our range, we have a predominance of chest voice sound. When we are in our upper register, we have a predominance of head voice sound. So there's more of that head voice color tone in that upper register. But we still want to be mixing or blending to some degree when we are singing. So at the end of the day, the goal when we're singing, when we're learning vocal exercises, is to find that mixed voice or that balance. I kind of interchange, in my mind, when you are mixing, you are balanced. So I think of it that way. So when I say balance, I'm actually still saying mixing or connection. That's another way of explaining it too. It's when you are connected, when you are balanced, and that color tone is even all the way through. And when you find that and you find that balance of color tones and mixing of color tones, that's going to enable you to be able to sing ah in one continuous tone throughout your range without any sudden breaks or sudden flips into falsetto, or like forcing yourself to push too much chest voice up into the upper register. So in a nutshell, mixed voice is really about blending. It's mixed voice is when you're blending that lower register sound with that the lower chest voice sound with the upper head voice sound. And you're mixing it together, and you're balanced all the way through. I hope that answers your question. Again, like I said, this could be a whole training in and of itself. It's a really great question. So I hope that gives you a little bit of an idea of what mixed voice is. Think of it as a color tone. Think of it as a tonal quality. Think of it as a sound quality, rather. Tonal color is sound quality. Think of it that way, rather than thinking of it in a very technical, well, is it which muscles am I using to create mixed voice? I think that gets a little bit confusing and it's not necessarily helpful for students. So think of it as color tone, and it's a blend of, it's a ratio, it's a blend of the lower tones with the upper tones. Hope that's helpful. All right. And I'm just going to double check to see here if there are any more questions. That was the last of the questions that I was going to present here today. Thank you all so much for sticking around. And if you have any other questions, I'm going to be back again next week, but I hope to see you at my workshop coming up. Don't forget to join. If you want, you can go back to this thing here. Remember that the workshop is only $10 US. onlinevocalacademy.com/workshop. All right. Have a wonderful week. Have a wonderful weekend. I hope this was helpful. And this was fun for me too. I'll see you all very soon. Bye-bye.